Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Hold on to the edge of your seats because you are in for quite the ride. It's time for the Granada Forum Radio Show. Right now, live on air with your host, Granada Wendy.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Granada Forum Radio program. Tonight we have a wonderful guest, Mr. Robert Newman, and we'll have him on in about 30 minutes. We're just going to do some announcements, talk about a few things, and then we'll have the gentleman on who's running for California governorship in California. Today, by the way, is the 11th of May. God, it's gone kind of fast. It's kind of amazing. So it is a May 11th on the Friday, the second Friday of 2018. And thank you for being with us, and we hope you have a good time here. By the way, this is Revolution Radio. We are the #1 commercial-free, listener-supported Internet talk radio station in the world. You can get us at freedomslips, SLIPS.com. That's freedomslips.com. And I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Nick Pearson. Nick, you there?
Hey, hey.
Okay. And our wonderful producer, who we cannot live without. I want to thank him so much from the bottom of our hearts, who makes us go every Friday night, Mr. Richard Kane.
Hello.
Thank you, Richard. Okay.
Hey, Wendy, one other thing, too, besides the freedomslips.com, I guess there was a new domain put out there.
Okay,
and Rich was telling me that you can also find us at revolution.radio.
Correct.
Right.
Great. Revolution.radio. Cool. Thank you, Nick. Cool. Revolution.radio. Okay. All right, that's good. Thank you very much. I'll write that down. Great. Okay. By the way, let me just say a couple of things. We want to thank a couple of people. We'd like to thank Jordan Maxwell, who supports our show. His website is jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's the jordanmaxwellshow.com. Also, next week, of course, we have Deborah Tavares. And, of course, you can reach her at www.stopthecrime.net. That's www.stopthecrime.net. We'd also like to thank those wonderful people at Olalola, and they go to their website, drinkyourvitamins.com. That's drinkyourvitamins.com, Olalola, a great company. Recommend it. Use it all the time. We can't say enough about them. Really good stuff, too, and that's no lie. And that's Olalola. That's at drinkyourvitamins.com. There you go. All right. Also, too, we'll be at the 46th Annual Cancer Control Convention at the Glendale Hilton, Glendale, California, September 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, 2018. That's Labor Day weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And you go to www.cancercontrolsociety.com. That's cancercontrolsociety.com. Their phone number is 323-663-7801, 663-7801, and you go to www.cancercontrolsociety.com. That's cancercontrolsociety.com. That's for all the alternative cancer control medicine and therapies for cancer control. And it's amazing. You learn about prevention and nutrition and non-toxic cancer therapies such as Laetrile, Garrison, Hoxi, Proximava, enzymes, and autoimmune therapy. So it's great. You have medical doctors as well as clinical researchers and nutritionists and authors. So it's a great thing you definitely want to check out at the 46th Annual Cancer Control Convention. Again, that's www.cancercontrolsociety.com, cancercontrolsociety.com. Okay, cool.
Yeah, hey, maybe that guy with that bed will be there this year, too, this coming year.
Yeah, I'm going to give them a call, see if we can get them on. Absolutely. I think
that thing was a trip.
Yeah, I know. Especially for you. I think you need that, Nick. I hate to say that.
I could use one. I don't think I want to pay the price tag for it, but yeah, I could use one.
Definitely use one. Yeah, I hear you. Our other one will be at, too, a couple things. On June, is it 15th? The Alien Con at the Pasadena in Pasadena. Is that correct? The 15th?
Yeah, it's on the 15th.
Yeah, the 15th. We will be there live. We're going to do a show. We're going to looking forward to that. And that's aliencon.com. That's aliencon.com. And it's going to be held in Pasadena, California. So please check them out on aliencon.com. And we will be there live doing a show presentation. So we're looking forward to that one. That's very nice. Also, too, on September 22nd, 23rd, we'll be at the Natural Health Solutions Expo at the LAX Marriott at 5855 West Century Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90045. That's LAX Marriott at 5855 West Century Boulevard, Los Angeles, 90045. And that is September 22nd, 23rd. Phone number for them is 562. That's 562-212-3479. 562-212-3479. I'm sure if you go to the National Health Solutionsexpo.com, they probably have a website on. You'll find them immediately, and that's the National Health Solutions Expo at the Marriott, 22nd, 23rd. Phone number again is 562 from Melissa, 562-212-3479, 212-3479. That'll be very much fun there. That will be in September too, so we'll have a busy September for both of us. By the way, real quick, Nick, I'm going to have to call you probably next week. I got my ballot, and I got to call David Hernandez as well. By the way, David Hernandez is running for Lieutenant Governor of California, and you go to davidhernandez.com. You can definitely go on his website. Great guy. By the way, we have lots of ballots for. I'm probably going to have to vote no on every one, though, because it's all sick and tax funding. But I have to ask a few people some questions. Have you looked at the California ballot? Even though I know you,
I didn't see the ballot itself. I got the Gun Owners of California's candidate ratings card. They still because I was with them for a little while, and so they get me like for the governor's race, state senate, and assembly. Yeah, their ratings on them, and they're kind of like the NRA just for California. Right. Actually, no, they're better than that. They're the Gun Owners of America just for California. Yeah. So there's some of them got very disappointing because some of the people on here I know, and they didn't even reply to it, so you don't know where they stand. But right.
I do have to mention also, too, besides David Hernandez is running for Lieutenant Governor of California. We wish him all the best, David. He's running for Lieutenant Governor. Roxanne is running against Navarro, Nazarian in my district. Her name's Roxanne. She's the only candidate, and she's running against Nazarian. So we recommend that you vote for Roxanne because
Roxanne Hogue, Hoge.
Yeah, Hogue. Yeah, and she's running against Nazarian and is in assembly. So we hope that maybe she wins, and we pray she does. And so she is running. So we want her to have a good campaign and do quite well. But yeah, David's running for Lieutenant Governor, so we're definitely on our ballot. He's automatic for David. But a couple questions I do got to ask you guys, go over, and
it's going to be interesting out here because Paul Ryan's not running again.
Oh, thank God! Yeah. So who are your candidates? Who are you voting for, Nick?
I don't live in his district, so it doesn't really matter to me. But my congressman here is turned into a rhino real quick.
Oh my God!
So if he's the only Republican running, I'm going to look at other candidates. And
would you have a Libertarian or an Independent Party person running?
I would go either one of them. I hate, I'm never going to vote for a Democrat, but like I said, there have been Democrats that I've liked, but they, one of them turned into your basic socialist, and the other one he's retired out a while ago. But I'm going to tell my congressman straight up whenever he gets one of his campaign stops. And, I don't think he thinks he has to do one because he's the only one only Republican on the ballot. I'm going to tell him straight up, I'm not voting. If it's a choice between you and a Democrat, I'm not voting for anybody. Okay, I am not a party loyalist, as far as the Republicans go, and I didn't even register as a Republican when I came out here anymore. I am completely party independent. I will vote for whoever I want to.
That's right. Well, you should vote. You should vote for the person and not the party, and look at what they stand for because that's the most important thing.
Right, and the problem is that most people don't look at it that way. It's like you have to vote for the Republican. No, I don't.
No, there's other candidates.
I wouldn't even vote for what was his name? Gary something from the Libertarian Party who was running for president last time.
Oh, because he was terrible, though. Yeah, out of all the Libertarian Party, he was out of all the Libertarian candidates the last 40 years. He was the absolute worst.
Yeah, he sounded good when he was running for president when Ron Paul was running in 2012. But
he changed
when he didn't get the nomination from the Republicans, he went into the Libertarian Party, and it was just like he ran this last time around as the Libertarian candidate, and it was just like, my God, what happened to you? Did you slip on something and bang your head, or
right?
Did you drop too much acid or something, or what? What happened? It's like, my God, you are not the same guy that you said you were like 4 years prior. And,
right.
The same thing happened with this congressman in my district here. 2 years ago, he sounded great, and yet his voting record and his actions since then have proven otherwise. So he turned into your basic rhino Republican, and it's like, okay, forget it. I don't have to vote for anybody I don't want to. And the funny thing to me was I ran into one of the Wisconsin Republican Party representatives. I don't know where he stands on the food chain. I know he's not in charge of it. And I asked him about, what candidates do you back, during the primaries? Oh, we don't get involved in the primaries. And I just looked at the guy, really? You want to lie to me again? Because after all that experience that me and you have both had in California about watching the Republican Party interfere in the primaries, you can't tell me that the state parties don't get involved. I don't care what state you're in. The state party gets involved in the primaries.
Right.
And I watched them. We watched them undermine Tim Donnelly. We watched in California.
Oh, God. What, and Tim had a chance, but they absolutely they hatcheted him. And there's so many people, Robert's going to be on in a few minutes, and I can't wait because at least he's a decent candidate. But there's, I got to go get the ballot just to look at it real quick while he's on. But, I think there's a Libertarian maybe running. And, there's so many people running, and I can't go there, but I mean, so many of them are just so terrible.
Well, thank God that Jerry Brown is finally termed out and he can't run again ever.
I know, thank God. Thank God.
But, we got Scott Walker here who's running again, and he's probably going to get it, much to the dismay of the teachers' unions especially. But the general unions out here, they don't like him, and it's like okay, that's fine, because the unions were a long time ago, they used to be, this is my opinion of the unions, a long time ago, they used to be pretty good about things. I mean, they really did fight hard to get some safety regulations in place for the workplace, and they fought hard for people to get some kind of decent pay and, time off for sick or injury and things like that. Okay, I'll give that to them. I don't know how true a lot of that part is. I'll give that to them. But beyond that, they are very much a communist ideology construction, and they are also have become so corrupt that it's beyond stupid at this point. And the fact that they actually have it codified into federal law, they are allowed to use violence to get what they want, and they cannot be prosecuted for it. Go figure that one out. That was one big one that Trumpka, not Donald Trump, but Trumpka, who used to run the Teamsters unions, that fought for, and they can come in and they can do whatever they want to you, pretty much, to get you to see things their way. Is how I understand it anyway. So, I am really not in favor of unions anymore. And every time somebody tells me, oh, my God, I'm in the union and it's great. And it's just like, yeah, you're the one screwing part of an organization that's screwing things up in America, which is why a lot of our manufacturing jobs are not being manufactured in America,
right.
Yeah. I mean, I saw this great documentary some years ago when it showed like how bad Detroit had become, who used to be like the auto making capital of the planet, of the entire world. They used to make every car there that was worth anything. And now it's just completely run down in certain areas. I mean, I've been through there. I've seen the houses that are run down. Of course, I saw them from the freeway because I wasn't getting off to go look at them personally.
Right.
But so this guy who was a union rep for the United Auto Workers was out there talking to this company that was considering making these electric cars in Detroit. And during some of the negotiations, the first thing he did, he's handed them a list of demands that they wanted, pay and benefits and all this other stuff. And towards the end of the documentary, the car company came back and said, "No, we're making it in Japan." "Well, I need to talk to you about that." And I said, "What's to talk about? You guys are unaffordable. We can't afford what you want us to do anymore." That's why that's why everybody moved out of Detroit. Right. Donald Trump's been trying to bring that back, I think.
Well, he's working hard to redo NAFTA and give tax breaks to many companies and to work with companies to bring jobs back into America. And I know that Pennsylvania and Ohio were just decimated too.
Yeah, he's been successful to a certain degree, but once you get the corrupt union leaders in there, they immediately start making all these demands of the companies, and the companies are like, "Well, look, we can't keep up."
Right.
Okay. I mean, they might be doing better now. Our economy is a lot better than it was under Obama, but some years ago when Barry was running everything into the ground, and after the economic collapse in 2008, and which, by the way, if you really research that goes all the way back to Jimmy Carter, and Bill Clinton was no prize on that one either when he repealed the Glass-Steagall Act to regulate the banks. But
right.
So we had that terrible economy for all those years, and then the union guys are still coming in demanding all these gimmies from the car companies, and the car companies are just like, "Sorry, we're gone. Bye." Greener pastures. That's just that's the way business works. And the unions just they all kind of blamed it on everybody who was not really all that responsible for it, which was the part that cracked me up even worse, was because it came to that blame shifting, and it always amazes me how people can always end up pointing the fingers at the wrong people because that's who they're told to point them to. And you talk to anybody, especially in some of the jobs that I've worked at, and they're always blaming the wrong people for it. And it's like, well, why don't you get out there and do something about it? Start your own business and see how it works. Oh, no, I can't do that.
Hey, Nick, I promised John maybe a quick announcement, so hold on. Hold the thought. John, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you okay, John. Go ahead.
Okay. As all of you know, President Donald Trump is scheduled to go to Singapore on June 12th to meet with Kim Jong-un. But first of all, I want to remind the American people that we are still in a North Korean missile crisis, and we should still be very vigilant and very alert considering we do not have a missile defense system. Regarding the selection of Singapore, I have a few concerns that perhaps were never brought to the attention of the president. First of all, beginning in June and continuing on through October, due to the slash and burning on the neighboring island of Sumatra in Indonesia, the air quality is extremely poor. Perhaps not quite as bad as Beijing, but it is rather poor. And people are advised who have heart conditions or respiratory problems to stay away from Singapore during that time. Now, I've been looking up Kim Jong-un's medical record, and it appears that he has heart problems amongst many other things, practically everything under the sun you can imagine. So,
how could that be, seeing that he's such a health nut, apparently?
Well,
do you see the fine physical specimen that he is?
He's, of course, is very much overweight. He's indulged in very rich foods. A chain smoker, you name it, he's doing it basically. But what concerns me is we want him to be in the optimal health, the best health that he possibly can be in when he is negotiating, so that he will be more inclined to make wise decisions, decisions that would be more amicable. And you have to understand that because Singapore is just about 1 degree north of the equator, just slightly more than 1 degree north of the equator, that it has a climate which is referred to as tropical rainforest. Now, I realize you have all of these towering advanced skyscrapers on this city-state, but still every day of the year is fairly warm, with some rainfall generally every day. And as a result, people take out umbrellas either to shade themselves from the rain or the bright sun. And that could pose a security problem for the VIPs because, as you know, some umbrellas are designed to be weapons, lethal weapons. But, I think of all of the possibilities and situations relating to these meetings, and even though Singapore is what you would call a neutral entity because of its business and contacts, and it remains neutral because of its diplomacy and very strong military forces, you begin to wonder if maybe we could have done a little bit better in certain respects. So that's a concern that I have. You won't hear too much about it in the newspaper because obviously the journalists are not geopolitical analysts. They're just going to report something or parrot something that was released to them. But it does concern me a little bit. Ironically, about the only aircraft that Kim Jong-un has at his disposal is a fairly short-range jetliner, which can barely make it to China across the LOC. And, of course, Singapore is about 3,000 miles away, so obviously he's going to have to book another plane from China that he'll probably charter, and that should take him down to Singapore. But any thoughts or comments that you guys might have about this, or maybe it's not of any great concern?
Well, maybe once upon a time it used to be, but really not much anymore.
They're going to talk.
At least, the very least, what I can say is, regardless of what anybody may have thought about Donald Trump before, and again, I got to put myself in that corner where I'm not the guy's biggest cheerleader. He actually got Kim Jong-un to the negotiating table.
Yeah,
They met Kim Jong-un and the South Korean leader actually met each other at the DMZ, stepped over the line each. Nothing happened. Everybody was good. So, maybe it was not such a bad thing that Donald Trump put his foot down. So, yeah, well, and I don't blame Donald for not going into North Korea to do a meeting there. I mean, what a target of opportunity that would be.
Well, yeah, right. You have to meet a neutral site. No, absolutely.
Right. So,
no, I would not want to have a meeting on the DMZ. I would rule that out at least.
Considering where they have that. Civil. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it, but if they ever look it up, you can go to the spot on the DMZ where they always have the meetings between North and South Korea, and the United States sometimes is present on them. And there's just these buildings. There's a line in the middle that actually splits the buildings in half, and they're kind of like these shacks, basically. And that's the line. That line is between North Korea and South Korea. They have gunfights there all the time.
Do they really?
Oh, my God, yeah. There was a big one back in 1984 where somebody defected. The North Koreans started shooting at the guy. They came running over the border. Our guys and the South Koreans shot at them. There's a bunch of people got killed. There was one that was just recently, not too long ago, somebody else came running across the border, and there was a big gunfight then. There's shots being fired across the DMZ all the time. When I was in Korea, I was actually went up to Seoul with a bunch of the guys in my squadron, and I was being offered by these South Korean guys, "Hey, you want to come up to the DMZ and watch the firefight?" It's like, "What are you talking about? There's no firefight." And he goes, "Oh yeah, there's always a firefight. Everybody's always shooting across there." So yeah, I mean, the DMZ was not exactly like the safest place to be, and I don't blame the president of the United States for not wanting to be there and be in the middle of that, considering how many people around the globalists, especially, would love to take him out.
There you go.
Because he's not playing the same game that they are.
Okay.
Right. He has actually visited the DMZ zone earlier during his presidency, but he didn't bother to cross the line.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, meet on neutral ground. That's how you do it.
That's how you do it. By the way, is Bob there? Is Bob on? Is Bob on?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay. All right. We might just be listening. Okay.
But one of the other things I would say, we were talking about this earlier off the air, and I just want to kind of mention it before we bring our guest on and everything. And I was just I was telling Wendy and Rich, and said, make sure everybody goes out and gets a bottle of champagne and puts it on ice, and be ready to pop it open, because John McCain is almost dead. John McCain is almost dead from brain cancer. John McCain is, the day he dies, pop the bottle of champagne, have a celebration. I swear to God.
Arizona's going to get a new senator. Oh my God!
Well, yeah, but it's not going to be voted in either. It's going to be an appointment.
Are you serious? They're not going to have an election?
No, that's not how it works. When a senator or a congressman dies, there's not a special election for their seat. There's an appointment by the state government.
By Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona State. I think the governor makes the nomination, and then I think the legislature has to vote.
So is the governor of Arizona? The governor of Arizona is what, conservative?
Possibly. I don't remember exactly who it is.
Okay.
So, but whoever it is, I don't think it could be really much worse than John McCain.
Oh, God. Well, anything's got to be an improvement over John. He was it was ridiculous.
Yeah. And
by the way, Wendy and Nick, the same is true here in the state of California. When our state senators died in the past, the governor, generally a liberal at the time or a Democrat, appointed a new senator.
I think that's how. Yeah, I think that even goes back way before the 17th Amendment, I believe. But when they started actually having the people vote for the senators were chosen by the state legislature to represent in Congress the state's issues. The House of Representatives is for representing the people of the state. That's how they divided the House up. But they changed that. So now that the senators are no longer answerable to the state, they don't really care. They just want to appeal to the voters. So they're not interested in what the state issues are. It became this really weird thing. So basically, the senators are just a smaller House of Representatives. So they completely eliminated the Senate as a separate body from the House of Representatives, which is what it's supposed to be. So I think that the whole idea of appointing the senator the state appointing a senator in case of a death or something like that, it goes way back to the origins of the Constitution. But that's the way I think that's the way it works in all 50, unless some of the states have changed their state laws on it. But as far as I know, they haven't.
Yes. Some of you may recall Senator Claire Engel, going back a few decades, almost a half century. And when he passed away, then Governor Edmund Brown appointed someone else to take his place.
Right. I think it might work different for Congress, because I remember when Sonny Bono smacked that tree.
He didn't smack that tree. I want to tell you folks, I had the privilege of having dinner twice with Sonny Bono while we were on the campaign trail, and during our conversation, it became very clear to me that he was an outstanding skier. There's certain jargon and things that you pick up Many of my second cousins were proficient skiers, and there's even something that was put out by a man by the name of Fletcher that you might want to contact.
Yeah,
who's
Bob,
done an
Bob.
expose.
Yeah, Bob,
Yeah,
we've been trying to get a hold of him.
We've been trying to get a hold of him to get him back on the show. But I think Bono was
Because he
killed
was
personally.
assassinated.
Yeah, he was killed.
Well, either. Well, let's stick with the official story. Okay, he ran into a tree. Okay,
Yeah,
the tree popped up out of nowhere. He ran into a tree. Just for sake, that's the official story. But they did have a special election in which his wife got elected to his seat. So it
And
might.
she wasn't even, and you know what? She wasn't even a conservative. She was like voting for everything. I think she only stayed one time so she could just get a benefit.
Yeah, that might have been.
Because a senator, she gets health and everything and a retirement.
Right. Anyway, we're at the 7:30 mark. We might want to get our guest.
We might want to get our guest on.
So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we could run with this forever.
Yeah. I think it's very sad what happened to Sonny Bono.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. And that was during the Clinton administration.
Do we have?
I heard he had the goods. I heard he had the goods on Clinton. I heard he had some definitely stuff on him.
Well, that would probably be the reason why he's not there anymore.
Yeah, I think so.
We have Robert, guys. Hey, Robert,
right.
you can turn off your camera if you like. There, it's just audio.
Okay. Let's see how I do that.
Just click on the camera icon, and it should put a line through it.
There you go.
Okay.
Well, welcome to the program, Robert, Mr. Newman, and the Granada Forum Radio program, along with Nick Pearson and my wonderful producer, Richard Kane. And we want to thank John for giving us your number to have you on, and we're so grateful. Mr. Newman, can you give out your website so how people can get in touch with you?
Yes, it's Newman, Newman, the number 4, governor, .com. Newman4governor.com.
Cool. Newman4governor.com, number 4. Gotcha. Okay. Well, Mr. Newman, why don't you, I hate to say this, but you're running for governor of California for the Republic of California. And maybe you'd like to tell our listening audience exactly what you stand for and what you like, and then we'll I know Nick is dying and probably answer you a couple questions, but
a bunch, just a bunch.
Yeah, a whole bunch. There you go. But we definitely give you some time to speak. So we're going to give you this opportunity to tell people who you are and what you represent and what you stand for, handsome.
You said it again. And you haven't even seen me.
There you go. But listen, if you win, we'll definitely come visit you up there.
And you definitely would be welcome. But you used the word if.
I believe you can win. I mean, I do. But it I don't want to jinx anybody.
Yes. Okay, whatever that would mean. Okay, there's a voter guide put out by the Secretary of State here in California, and it lists the candidate's statement as to what the candidate stands for. And my reads, I'm reading it now. What I am in favor of is God, life, U.S. Constitution, parental rights, property rights, business. What I want to be limited, and we can go over these again, limited government, limited taxes, limited regulations is what I don't want in California is geoengineering and a constitutional convention referred to as a CONCON. So that's a little bit about what I stand for. And you tell me where you'd like me to go, a little bit about my life, emphasis, where would you like me to go, but please structure it a little bit with respect to how much time we'll have together this evening.
Okay, well, let's start with this one first. What got you into politics in the first place?
Well, there's another expression there, and I have, I'll tell you directly, it's a God call. A lot of people don't understand that. I do, and that's sufficient. Enough people do. However, I'm not in politics. And this is an error that people make regularly, is that I am a candidate. I am an applicant for a job to run the state of California. I am not a politician, and I'm not interested in politics. I do realize the position crashes with politics. But you see, we have government and we have politics. And over the course of time, politics overshadowed government. So anyone who is pursuing a position, an elected position in particular, sadly enough is referred to as a politician. There's another term that more accurately fits me as others have described me, but I am not a politician, and I say it like I see it, based on fact, data, history, to the best of my ability, and maintain that position unless there's additional factual, in quotes, evidence that suggests moving some off that exact position. But I would clarify that based on more recent findings. I have to say whatever it might be. So I think that clarifies, and I am not a politician. I never have been. I'm 74 years of age. I don't need to be. So I maintain a straightforward position that is not popular with some people. I know that. I don't mince words. You'll put that together as we talk more, and I answer your various concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Now, you're running on the Republican ticket?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but you don't sound like a Republican, so, or at least not in my experience what the Republicans in California sound like anymore, the liberty movement aside from that. So, and I understand why you would do it, because you don't identify as one of the two major parties there. You're pretty much off the ballot to begin with, but what is your opinion of the Republican Party in general?
Let me move back. I grew up in a large family with we were clearly poor. There were 6 children. We were Democrats. That's the way to be. There's only one of them in the family currently who is a Democrat. She never caught on. Now, that's my background. When during my college years, the doctoral program in particular, I started to realize who pays the bills and who gets the benefits, and then became registered as a Republican. Both my wife and I registered as soon as we could. That was age 21 at the time. We voted in every election since that time. That wasn't because I'm preparing for this movement in my life. It's just that we are good citizens. Now, I don't know how many years ago I became a Republican, but I will tell you that in the last election for governor of California, I ran no party preference. I found out that that's an absolute disaster. Nobody even knows what it is and can figure it out, and therefore they either vote the R or the D for the most part. I then returned to the Republican Party because in principle that describes me quite well in many respects. That's not who the Republican Party is. You ask my impression or my position in relation to the Republican Party, I'm certainly to the far right of the Republican Party because I believe in the U.S. Constitution and rule of law and the supremacy clause in the U.S. Constitution, and I do not think that violating or modifying principle, solid principle, even if it wins votes or better represents the party, I'm not moved in that regard. The party is moving in a centrist position, which means to the left, to the left, to the left. That's not who I am. So I am a Republican, but I have very strong independent principles and I'm a bit libertarian in the sense that it represents individual freedom and individual responsibility. So, as I've said to Republican groups, I do not have elephants in my veins. I make decisions based on data, not based on what the party wants for the party.
Right.
Okay.
I asked you that because I was actually on the platform committee a couple of years back, and I watched them really move to the left on it. Jim Brolte, who is the party chairman for California, I watched him sell out. I watched the Republican Party of Los Angeles County sell out. And I watched them get their rewards too. And it just seems to me that they've all come under the thumb of some serious billionaire money there, who is manipulating the politics in California. Now, say you actually win the governorship of California, the Republican Party is going to love you. They probably don't like you now, but they'll love you then only because they want you to do what they want you to do. So what's going to be your, if you say you do become governor of California, what is your big number? What's going to be your big issue that you're going to try?
Number one issue. What's going to be your biggest issue that you definitely want to sink your teeth into?
Right.
Okay, but you typically have a number of facets to the question you ask, and so I'll move back to what is the Republican Party? What is their reaction to me? Though I carry the R, that's what they think. I make my own decisions, and the Republican Party will clearly try to influence me in a particular direction. I am mature enough and experienced enough in life to know what that kind of pressure might come to bear on me, but I have no medical conditions, to take no medications. I can stand up under that kind of nonsense. I have been in contact with Jim Brolte. I know his style of interaction. We are not close now. We will not be close then. I can detect manipulation and deception, but I also have others who are with me who are, let's say, perceptive enough and can detect that sort of thing as well. So the Republican Party will like it because I claim to be a Republican, but they will not like me as an individual. Now, another part of that question is my number one position. And I know this will surprise you because I realize that the people of California are like anyone else. And they are concerned about pocketbook issues. I understand that. They're concerned about jobs. They're concerned about taxes, regulations, and holding on to their more of their hard-earned money. Got it. I understand that. However, I've indicated that I make my decisions based on principle. Those principles are there in God's Word, and the real issue, and we can deal with this one straight on, the real issue is this country has moved away from, in a radical way, those kinds of principles. Now, the clearest principles one can rely on are the Ten Commandments. Now, those are pretty solid. Those are pretty sound. I mean, I know the Supreme Court can pervert them. Legislators can as well. They are good. If a society operated according to those principles, we would do extremely well. So I abide by those kinds of principles. I also move forward into the New Testament and know who the Messiah is and what that means. So my number one is this state return to a reverence for the true God, Jehovah God. I understand. I'm very Jewish in orientation. I went to a Jewish graduate school. So I I know there are differences in this whole matter, and the Muslims, and so on and so forth. That's my position, and that's how I function. Okay, let's move on from there.
All right. Let's get into because let me get into this one especially. I just got this notification from the gun owners of California, which is kind of the state faction of the Gun Owners of America, not the NRA, but the GOA, which is Larry Pratt's organization.
I'm familiar with it.
Right. Okay. And they gave me this candidate guide on how they stand as far as gun rights are, and unfortunately, you're not on here. They got 4 of the other candidates. They got 2 A's, 2 F's. So as far as let's get it out there in the open anyway, since they didn't put you on there. Where do you stand as far as not only let's make it specific to the Second Amendment? Where do you stand on that? How the Constitution relates to the state of California, and the one that really bothered me because they were trying. I heard the Democrats, the liberal Democrat communists, if you want to get more specific, if they were trying to get rid of Article 3 of the California Constitution, which states that the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and California is inseparable from the United States. So if you can take all 3 of those points and give me your position on each one.
Okay, I don't know what Constitution you are reading, but I will correct that. But I want to go back to the gun owners issue in California.
Okay.
They submitted that questionnaire to me. I filled out that questionnaire. I requested that they share that with their members. I'm not a member. I'm no longer a member of the NRA, and I'll lead into that as well. And I did so well on that questionnaire that they do not want to publish that information, and that's the reason they didn't send that information to you. I find that disgusting. I find that bias. I find that conditioning the voters to think along a particular line.
Did they give you a reason why?
Well, I just provided that. They don't want people to know about me.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense to me why they wouldn't want anybody to know about you if you were 100% on their side.
Because they think, and this happened back a couple of elections ago.
Okay.
Wherever we want to go with this, but I want to say the NRA, in which I was a member a while back, and I withdrew from membership because I scored 97, 98% on target with them. They provided that for me. They would not provide that for the voters. They wanted Meg Whitman 2 elections ago. They wanted
right.
So they didn't want people to know about my position about gun ownership. I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment to the Constitution, which means we need to bear arms to protect us from our glorious government. That's what that's about.
Right.
You know that, and I know that. Anybody who knows about gun ownership knows that. And so this socialist communist movement in our country knows that if we can remove the firearms from ownership, that a takeover becomes very easy.
Right.
So, okay, now, you made erroneous, apologize for this, reference to the Constitution. And certainly it was the Second Amendment, about the right to bear arms, form a militia, those kinds of things. But the Supremacy Clause, it's actually the second paragraph of Article 6.
Which part did I make an error on?
That one, the Supremacy Clause in particular, because
I think I was actually, when I said Article 3, I was talking about the California Constitution, not the U.S. Constitution.
Oh, okay. That's such a mess that I'll stay with the U.S. Constitution.
Okay.
I have familiarity with the. Okay, that's fine. I understand that. Thank you. Okay, what have I not addressed in terms of the facets of the question?
Well, let's take it a little bit in a different direction. So, and say you actually got elected to governor. Now, a year ago,
yes, okay,
a year ago, which actually a little over a year ago, the California State Legislature enacted a whole slew of gun laws, which actually made a lot of things that I own illegal in California. Enacted a bunch of regulations that were in complete violation of the Second Amendment. And again, we go back to Article 3 of the California Constitution, and that and various other reasons which caused me to leave California in the first place. I would like to come back to California, to believe it or not. But a lot of this stuff would have to change. Now, if you became governor, would you be able, in that seat, to be able to push to repeal a lot of those laws that they put in place? And would you do it?
The answer is yes. I will move in that direction. The other part of the question is, the governor has an influence or an impact, is in the executive branch to execute the law. You know that. Now, yes, the legislature makes the laws, and unfortunately in California, it's a tricameral legislation. That is to say, the Assembly and in the Senate, and then we have this nonsense of a referendum initiative issue when our legislature will not take care of a hot issue. So they dump it on the people, and the people think they've done the right thing rather than saying, legislature, this is what we want. You do it. You do it, and you assume full responsibility. Don't come up with an excuse later that the people decided, and I didn't really agree with them, but the people stated their voice. Okay, so the legislature makes the laws, can repeal laws in existence, and the governor has a position that the legislature knows. They know what the governor's position is. I will make that extremely clear as to what my emphasis is once I take office.
But you'd still be able to you would still be able to put some kind of pressure on the state legislature to act in accordance the way you would like to see it go. By say, okay, this law's coming in front of my desk. Okay, I want this too, or you're not getting it. You stamp the veto on it.
Here's the way I would see that. I will make it very clear what my position is. I'm not a politician, so I'm not slippery. I'll make it very clear what my position is. Now, the problem with that is it makes it somewhat easier when one knows exactly where I stand on something to circumvent my authority, undermine me, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that. I'll make it clear. These are the kinds of laws that the people of California, from which they will benefit. Those are the laws you need to take care of. And other laws having to do with superfluous, time-wasting, taxpayer dollars spending to start, and a law starting into the movement, being drafted and then going to committees and so on. It's a $10,000 bill to the taxpayers. And my position in that regard, I don't want these legislators writing another term paper. That's all they're doing. They're writing term papers. And the people don't need to pay for that. Okay, so when those come to my desk, then they will not be signed. Okay. But they'll know it. They'll know it already.
Okay. Well, and here comes another one, because I know that my assemblywoman was very much against it. What do you think about Jerry Brown's Train to Nowhere?
Oh, I think that's self-evident.
I think so too, but
being to nowhere, it is a boondoggle. It is an absolute disaster. He couldn't get it to happen. He spent a tremendous amount of money. As I understand it, the state was supposed to provide a third, federal government a third, and independent investors a third in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Apparently, the independent investors didn't come along, as I understand it, and it's an absolute disaster. It's a complete waste of taxpayers' money.
It's like the tunnel in Boston that they ran way over budget. Anyway, we're in our first break, and so when we come back, I want to hit you on some more national type of issues, and we'll be right back after this break. So hang tight, everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Yes.
Welcome back to the Granada Forum Radio program, ladies and gentlemen. We have a wonderful host tonight, Mr. Robert Newman is our guest. And me and Nick and Rich are here, all here. We're all back. So I want to thank you for taking the break with us and staying with us. We've got a whole another hour with Robert Newman. And so we're going to, by the way, Robert, your website, again, one more time.
Yes, it's newman4governor.com. And that's NEWMAN and the number 4, newman4governor.com.
Okay, so we're gonna continue to where we left off, and you and Nick were in some heated battles, but I want to definitely give you the last word. So definitely pick up where you left off.
Where was that?
Nick. Nick.
I think we finished answering the one question, and we were going to move on to another when the break came. So.
Okay.
But let's go into a whole other thing, because I want to start moving into some bigger topics, but I want to cover this one, especially in regards to California. How do you figure sanctuary? How do you want to deal with sanctuary cities if you became governor? I mean, that's become a huge topic nationwide, not just in California.
How do I want to deal with it? I've been very active. When that was even proposed, meeting with city councils, boards of supervisors, sheriff's departments in this area, various counties, and other agencies that's SB Senate Bill 54. I've been very active in that process for quite a while, even before that was finally drafted, etc. Now, what's my position on it? It is a secessionist kind of movement. It's to defy the federal government, and California and the executive branch, et cetera, will suffer the consequences for moving in that direction and allowing illegal aliens and thugs and other illegals into this country and tapping taxpayer resources, but that's all part of the plan to undermine California and this country and create internal conflict among groups, and it's a disaster. That's all there is to it. Now, I'm also a participant in various cities where the SB 54 matter is on the agenda, and I speak when I get there on time. Otherwise, there's a huge crowd, and the illegal aliens and illegal alien sympathizers are there, creating disruption, etc. But it's a disaster. First, we dealt with sanctuary cities. Then it became a sanctuary state. Now, cities and counties are joining in the amicus brief to, with our President Donald Trump, to deal with California in terms of a lawsuit.
Okay, but I mean, because I mean, there are times where I agree with definitely defying the federal government on some things, especially when it comes to states' rights. But this is one of the few that, this is actually codified in the Constitution about immigration. That does belong to Congress to make the laws regarding that.
Yes.
And they are, of course, very spineless about doing anything about it to begin with. But how would you, as far as I know, Arizona and Texas, I believe, have sent National Guard down to the borders to work with Border Patrol. Would you do the same thing with the National Guard of California to do the same thing?
Well, actually, it has already been done. Governor Brown has sent National Guard there at the request of the president to support Border Patrol.
I thought he said no. I thought he said he wasn't going to do that.
Well, my understanding is he has done it, but he has emasculated them so they can just stand by and look impotent, but really can't do any enforcement. So it's an empty suit situation. And but I haven't been to the border within the last couple of months. I've been there many times. However, I haven't actually seen the Minutemen out of California there. They have been called out to assist Border Patrol. I've been with Border Patrol a number of times in different locations. And so I think it's taken place, but nothing has really happened because our executive officer has said, don't do anything with anything, just be there. Whoop-de-doo. Okay, so maybe that addresses the question. Maybe I'm in error.
Right. Okay. Well, and then there's also the issue in Los Angeles. They have this. It's called Special Order 40, which was dreamed up by Tony Villaraigosa, who's probably one of the most corrupt mayors that they've had in my lifetime since I've been there. And then Eric Garcetti, who's the mayor there now, continued it on, which is basically if police stop somebody, they cannot ask them their immigration status, which is in essentially just saying like, hey, we are a sanctuary city, welcome everybody who wants to do harm to the United States, and even those who don't, but we're going to accept everybody anyway. What would be your authority to be able to put an end to programs like that? Because I mean, something like that, it really does prevent local law enforcement from being able to do anything as far as cooperating with ICE goes.
Well, again, you covered a number of different facets. With respect to the authority the governor has over the counties, I'm really vague on that. I think counties have the rights to do like the 10th Amendment. We have states' rights from the federal government. I think the counties have some rights and the cities have some rights in relation to state government. That's my understanding of it at this point in time. Never addressed this issue. However, I think that probably the influence that the governor would have would either be financial or force, and neither one of those do appeal to me. To force a city or force a county, or intimidate or withdraw finances, but I'd have to see how that would play out, in all honesty.
Okay. And because California, I mean, there's an old saying, so goes California, so goes the country, which is something I don't agree with in particular because I've met a lot of people from around the country who don't really care for California all that much, especially right now. But California has always been pretty much a very liberal state for the most part. I'm going way back when, and some of it I don't mind, but it has not just become liberal anymore. It's become extremely communist in its ideology. So you get in there, and what exactly is it that you are going to try to change as far as that kind of an attitude goes? I mean, the universities there, I mean, they put Janet Napolitano in charge of the the University of California system.
Yes.
And, there's got to be a change in there because the communists have basically infiltrated the college systems across the country, and they're churning out just good little communist soldiers running around. And you can see them because they're always sitting on a street corner crying about being offended by something. So as far as like education in California goes, I mean, that's got to be a huge issue. I mean, it is nationwide, especially with the Common Core standards that have permeated the entire school system and have been federalized, which means a lot of schools don't get to opt out of it anymore. So, I mean, you got to be able to make some kind of changes statewide in the school system. What would your recommendations be at this point?
I'm very much opposed to Common Core and will move in that direction in support of private education, homeschooling, parochial schools, that sort of thing, and taxpayer dollars directed in that direction. I realize this creates a lot of problems for me with the California Teachers Association. However, I'm in favor of freedom of choice and a number of options and parental rights to make decisions as to what is in the best interest of their children. So I'm not in favor of Common Core. And as you know, the big issue in Common Core is to teach it in such a way that the parents cannot be of assistance with their children learning things because the concept being taught in school is so foreign to the parents and to the rest of the world because it's illogical. So it emasculates the parents and shames them in the presence of their children, turns over the authority to, in quotes, teach to the school system and to the teachers. Okay, that's at the elementary up through high school level. With respect to the University of California system, as you know, the Lieutenant Governor in California, that happens to be Gavin Newsom, at this time, that he is to preside over that system. And he is clearly moving it in the direction away from what sound judgment would move it. But he is also responsible for land and water, and we can move into water later as you direct, and the Orville Dam deferred maintenance issue. He's a candidate for governor. That just scares people to death that he's moving in that direction. But with respect to the University of California system, that used to be an incredible system for purposes of education. And back in the old days when I was in school, graduate school, learning how to think, not what to think, but how to think, how to reason through something, evaluate the valence of the facts, and make a sound decision. So certainly Janet's on her way out.
That's great.
Okay, now, there you go. That's a good one.
And considering how, and I don't even think California really understands this, except for a few places around the country. I don't think California really realizes how reviled it is around the country, especially in the Midwest, where I have a residence now, and a little bit south of here. What would you do in relation to interacting with the other states? I mean, last time I was there, I was watching California like disintegrate. I mean, because I get to go back there sporadically now, but it's like it just seems that California, which was once like the big golden state, has now kind of tarnished itself. And gold doesn't tarnish, so maybe it's made of something else at this point.
maybe fool's gold.
Yeah, at this point, yeah.
I learned in abnormal psychology, even as an undergraduate, that California is the land of fruits and nuts. That's the way it was described. And we in California not only are inviting illegal aliens, but we are inviting unskilled workers who know how to apply for welfare but choose not to do anything differently and to, I'll say, suck off the system as if it were a big tit. And the taxpayers are paying for all of that. I think they're catching on. Now, with respect to the rest of the states laughing at California because we're absurd, we're absolutely ridiculous.
I don't think they're laughing at this point.
Oh. Okay.
I think they're really getting bent out of shape at this point.
Well, I don't know what they'd be bent out of shape about. They're in better shape in the state where they reside. And looking at California slip off into the Pacific Ocean. So,
right.
That's really what's happening. Now, there has to be some other aspects to this question that I did not touch on, but I have my PhD in research clinical psychology, right. And I did learn some things in graduate school, some nuggets. We're talking about gold, some nuggets. And one thing I learned is that adults are chronologically older children. Many of them never appeal to reason. They just appeal to emotion and influence from the crowd and that sort of thing in their various decisions. And that they never overcome the me thrust. And you see, I have to deal with that nonsense all of the time, that I'm representing the people of California and not just you in your particular job, especially your job working for the government, and leeching off the people. Even though your job might be a viable job, maybe it's unnecessary. Maybe the people individually need to assume more responsibility for picking up the trash in the street or for trimming the tree that needs to be trimmed, rather than calling the tree department in the city or the trash department or the dog catcher, etc. Take care of the problem yourself. That's what we used to do. Right. That's my thrust. And so before we go on to the question, I want to insert this particular nugget, and it's a Depression era statement. And it goes like this, because my wife and I live this way, and that's the reason we've been successful, and that it's use it up, wear it out, make it do, or do without. That's where I come from in terms of the California budget and respecting the people to keep their money rather than having it sent to the state and use it as they please, the fruits of their labor. So I covered a few things there that might trigger something. I don't know. But right. Please continue.
Yeah, I got another question, too, because you do have a PhD in clinical psychology.
Yes.
Is Maxine Waters completely insane?
Well, as a professional, we don't render opinion.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Okay, from outside observation, can you render kind of a layman's verdict on that, or some kind of diagnosis?
Not a diagnosis, an observation. She's a lunatic. But here the corollary to that: shame on the people who continue to reelect her.
Well, go ahead. Sorry. There is somebody running against her, so I hope the guy. What's the person's name?
Omar Navarro.
Oh, Omar Navarro. Yeah, Omar Navarro. So
Omar. I didn't know Omar was running against her. There is one other fellow that's actually Filipino, and it's Dante or something like that. Honey, find this card in here. I'll tell you who it is later. He's a good guy. I like Omar Navarro as well. I think that's as far as I'll go in this regard.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I swear to God, I'm not schooled in psychology or anything like that, but I can sit back and just watch her all day and just go like, oh my God, this is entertaining, because she cannot be playing with a full deck here.
I mentioned the me.
Yeah.
On that. Yeah. She fits it. No, she really does. She does not care about the people she is supposed to be serving, and she does.
I don't think she ever served them at all at once. That's
true. That is entirely true. I don't follow her. I'm in favor of her being dethroned.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she doesn't even live in the district she represents. She lives in a $4.5 million mansion in Hancock Park. Apparently, she's got multiple homes, and yet she's out there screaming and hollering about racial injustice every day. Every other word that comes out of her mouth is impeachment.
Yeah.
So she's either certifiably insane, or she is got OCD in a way that nobody else can imagine.
John, are you listening? John, do you want to ask a question to Robert? John, are you listening?
Is there John W. Spring on the line?
Yes, he is.
He's here, but I don't know if he's on.
Okay, am I on now?
Yeah, go ahead, John. You're on. You might want to ask a question, Robert.
I want to make sure that Robert gets to this. Robert, you're one of the few candidates running for any office who has actually visited Oroville Dam, and I wish that you had an opportunity tonight to describe in great depth what a disaster that is and how negligent Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom has been, because he's been in charge of California's water and land resources. This is his primary role as Lieutenant Governor. And because Oroville Dam is a earth-filled dam, it's not reinforced concrete like Hoover Dam between Arizona and Nevada. It is filled mainly just with good old-fashioned dirt, and if it's not maintained on a regular basis, you're going to have a lot of problems. And we are having a lot of problems. And when we consider the significance of that water source for the entire state, especially Southern California now, since the aqueducts have been built, we should be very concerned about this situation.
Okay. I want to take that a little bit further. I don't want to take this just to the Oroville Dam, which was turned into a nightmare when it collapsed, or at least the reinforcement on it. But the entire water system in California that bankrupted, or I don't know if they bankrupted, but it really put a lot of devastation on the Central Valley of California. And the federal government and our state federal representatives being involved in shutting the water off to those farms and the whole water situation in California in general, and how much it's cost California and the devastation. I watched the farmlands up in the Central Valley of California just turn into dust bowls for it must have been like 200 miles that used to be green because they were being watered regularly, turned into these like sand lots. So if you want to go full blown ballistic on the water situation in California and how it's been manipulated, it's actually like watching that movie Chinatown and what was going on. If anybody's familiar with that Jack Nicholson movie. Excellent. And how it manipulated the entire water system just for the benefit of some people to get some cash in their pockets.
Yes. Okay, I won't comment on Chinatown, but John W. Spring has suggested that I discuss the water situation in California, which is an extremely, extremely important. But I'm going to return just a second to the high-speed rail, because that plays into the water issues in California. you see the plot relates to United Nations Agenda 21, 2030 to turn Central California into a wilderness and have all the people in the Central Valley move into pack 'em and stack 'em next to rails and having their bicycles and those sorts of things.
Right,
okay.
the stack and packs.
That's right. Stack 'em and pack 'em. Now, so that's the scheme there, because the high-speed rail won't stop along the 99 and support those towns along there, and it'll all turn to a ghost town. That's the idea. Then the government buys this land very cheaply, land conservancy people, etc. Okay, now that has to do with the high-speed rail. The same thing is the dynamic working against the farmers and the people of Central Valley and providing food for all of us. We eat every day. We need water every day. The Delta smelt and the Wenger decision, I think that's 2008, and to cut off water at certain times because the Delta smelt was threatened as a threatened species, not endangered, but threatened, and that on the federal list, and that the pumps at Tracy that pump the water south for both agriculture, industry, residents, that sort of thing, need to be reduced during certain times. Well, it has now been determined by ichthyologists that the striped bass consumes the Delta smelt, which is not a indigenous fish anyway. It's an invasive fish, and so the whole thing was, sadly to say, a legal scheme that all fit together to destroy Central Valley. Now, we have two basic water systems in California. One is the Central Valley Project. That was constructed during the Depression, WPA project to convey water from Shasta Reservoir north of the Orville Dam to provide water for agriculture, to feed the world. Okay, now that's one project. There's also the Department of Water Resources, a California agency, and that then is responsible under the direction of the lieutenant governor, who is Gavin Newsom at this point in time, but it was others who have failed to do maintenance on the Orville Dam over a long period of time. So this time last year, actually in February, the dam was clearly threatened because the main spillway was collapsing. The reserve spillway, this had never been used since the dam was constructed in 1960, that was then being used. That dumps water onto bare earth. Bare earth erodes, and then erodes more of the major or main spillway. Now, John W. Spring made reference to the construction of the Orville Dam. At the time that it was constructed, that it was conceived in the 50s and constructed, that, and then I want to get into the psychology of Pat Brown, the former governor, the father of Jerry Brown. If I'm reminded, I'll get into the psychology of what's really going on there in relation to the Orville Dam. So the Orville Dam is threatened. Now, the construction is the material that was behind the dam, naturally occurring river-shaped rocks that are round, basically round or flat. They were pushed up into a pile. They were then packed with earth, and there is concrete outside of that. But if one can conceive of, and Mary and I, my wife, have published our book. The name of it is My Journey, My Stand, and it covers this issue. And if one stacks up bowling balls, packs earth in the cracks, eventually water will seep into that and then create what is now present are green spots on the dam wall itself. That's water leaking through. Now, that is not said to be a real threat to the dam itself, but it can be. Now, the construction was okay, as I understand it, at that time. However, the dam itself was never fully approved in construction for whatever reason I don't know, because a lot of these documents are hard to find, as you know. But there also was a release tunnel. I've forgotten the dimensions of it. Let's say their pipeline, let's say it's 6 foot across. That was never finished. That was designed to relieve water from the dam, regular releases, as would be appropriate. Now, with respect to the danger to the Orville Dam itself, the Department of Water Resources monitors the weather, the snowpack, the snowmelt weather. Something got away from them, and they are fully responsible for this disaster that occurred at the Orville Dam that threatens all the water basically coming south. Water in my area. We're on a farm, so we have a water well, but there is an aquifer. There's a water table that has to be replenished from time to time, naturally. And so this water coming from the Orville Dam fills various reservoirs along the way, but nowhere near the number that it was supposed to charge or recharge along the way, and that was never done. Now that relates then to the psychology between our current governor and Pat Brown. When I was the president of the local psychological association, which was the largest in the state and bigger than some state psychological associations, that I was involved in the legislative element. And some of our people in the Sacramento area within psychology talked to Pat Brown about what Jerry Brown was doing in relation to the sunset law of psychologists in California. That has nothing to do with water, but it has to do with the relationship. Pat Brown said something to the effect, I can never understand what my son does. And so he was doing a lunatic thing back in the mid-70s, mid to late 70s. He was doing a bad thing for the people of California, removing psychology as a profession, licensed only at the doctoral level, and putting it into the crystal ball readers and so on and so forth. That's what he was trying to do. I was active at that time, being opposed to that. It didn't happen. But I wanted to say that was a function of the relationship. Dad was into water, so son says, I'm going to destroy water. Here's another illustration. And it has to do with the roads, freeways in California. It was an excellent design as far as I'm concerned, as far as roadways go. Jerry Brown said about 1977, if you don't build them, meaning freeways, they won't come. Well, he was wrong again. But that had to do with friction between father and son. As a psychologist, that's the way I see it. I wanted to share that with you so you understand a little bit about how I see life. Okay, is there, what else do I need to clarify about the Delta smelt, about the San Francisco Bay Area, the Delta there, the estuary there, the marine water, those sorts of things? Do you want me to add more to that, or we want to move on to another?
Well, let me ask you this: what happened? What was the deal with all the water that was being dumped out into the Pacific? In order to, like, again, save the Delta smelt, and yet they were starving out the Central Valley and Southern California, which was in a drought at the time. I mean, I was down there when they were doing it, And of course, their explanation was, well, the Delta smell. That was their big go-to when they wanted to deprive water to the farmers in Southern California.
Okay. There needs to be a certain amount of water from the mountains that flows out to the Pacific Ocean to keep marine water at bay. It ebbs and flows, but it keeps it from invading to a detrimental effect on the ecosystem of the San Francisco Bay Area. So there needs to be a certain volume. The volume sent out, I have it in the book. I don't hold on to these kind of statistics, and that in terms of the volume of water and how many families it would support if it were to be sent south for human use. The scheme is to destroy Central Valley and food production, and then people not having enough to eat, leading into the direction of famine, riots, those sorts of things. But I want to say that the movement of the irresponsibility of our current governor, going back many years, and Gavin Newsom, in terms of lack of real leadership for the people, that the two of them go hand in glove. And Gavin Newsom is elected as lieutenant governor, elected by the people, responsive to the people, and secondarily to the executive officer. If the Orville Dam would have collapsed either incrementally or all at once, that there would be over 1 million people who would be instantly washed out, killed and washed out to sea. I'm talking about schools and hospitals and businesses and the whole everything, and it would flood. It would flood. Okay, it would destroy roads, railway. It would destroy airports. That's part of the sick plan we're talking about. That people, I don't oftentimes share this when I speak publicly because it is so far-fetched. Right. They can't fit.
Well, take this one apart too, because take on this issue too, because this is all part of Jerry Brown's train to nowhere. That high-speed rail that hopefully won't get built. My assemblywoman, she was against it. She got heavily voted out of office due to Democrat communist opposition. But she showed us the planned tunnels that they were going to build in order to go down from, I think it was Palmdale into Burbank. And every single one of these tunnels went right through the largest aquifer in LA County that supplied the entire county. Now, in order to dig those tunnels, they have to lubricate the diggers with this that's very toxic. I don't know if it's oil, whatever solvent it is that they use. So they would contaminate they could contaminate all the water. Then they would say, okay, then we can spend another $1 billion, which they're going to add onto the price tag to filter out all the contaminants, and then we're going to feed it to you. I mean, I don't know if anybody would be buying it, but I mean, this is, and plus, you also have the emerald necklace around Los Angeles. I mean, Agenda 21 seems to be behind every single decision-making process that's in the state government there. And, of course, it's nationwide and worldwide, too. But, I mean, can you speak to any of that?
Well, I think, I don't know what I'm supposed to be speaking to, because I've been referencing United Nations Agenda 21 from time to time in this whole matter. I do not know about the topic that you're referencing there relative to tunnels and
it was part of Jerry Brown's train.
Oh, okay.
Well, so, and every tunnel that they wanted to make to go through the Sierra Mountains to get into Los Angeles went right through the main aquifer that supplied Los Angeles with water. Since
Okay.
I mean, since you were into the big water thing, I thought you might have known something about
I
it.
don't know about that. Maybe John W. Spring can address that. I can't share anything about that.
Okay.
My information on that, Nick, is also fairly limited. It's
Okay.
actually, what I've learned from you, I found to be rather shocking because based first of all upon the San Andreas fault and the many other multiple faults in Southern California and throughout the state, that on top of actually attempting to drill through the aqueducts to build a tunnel for Jerry Brown's choo-choo train just does not make any sense at all.
Yeah, not through the aqueducts, but through the aquifer in the San Fernando Valley, and that would have contaminated so much water it would have been stupid. And of course, then they would have been
aquifer. Well,
yeah, and then they would have been, of course, asking for more water, clean water, or some way to filter it. And those companies were already lined up with these gigantic billion-dollar filtration systems that they wanted to put in there anyway. So, I mean, it seems like not only is it Agenda 21, but there's also a lot of money involved in it. And, of course, the taxpayers are going to be footing the bill for it.
That's right.
Yes. Already our aquifers are being threatened by so many oil seepages caused by chemical additives that are coming in from Canada. Ray Bream brought this out decades ago on his talk show program. And when you consider the fact that you also have seawater intrusion along the coastal areas, which Dr. Newman was referring to earlier, aquifers are very precious underground areas that need to be preserved and enhanced. And most people are not aware of this, but our greatest source on this planet at this time are the aquifers rather than the ice caps, the lakes and rivers in terms of fresh water. Now, what Deborah Tavares has said is something new in addition to that, and if we can verify that, then of course it's a whole new game. But in the meantime, dealing with what we have to work with right now, our aquifers are so precious, and I'm sure that Dr. Newman is very much aware of this, as he is about other issues like the homeless and their problems, which we should address later on this program.
Right. Well, we don't got that much on it, but here's one thing I also want to ask, because I know for a fact Jerry Brown has actually gone into other countries and made agreements. Especially he's done it with Mexico, which is in complete violation of the Logan Act, which unfortunately never seems to get enforced. But where do you say? You got elected governor. Where do you see California's role on the world stage?
Let me first address the issue of treaties. That's an agreements with foreign countries. That's a federal government responsibility, and it's a complete defiance of the federal position. But that's the kind of thing that he just does, and that jeopardizes the status of California, because he does not have that authority. But the foreign governments should know it anyway. But so that does have to be addressed. But that's a federal issue. Getting to that now, but there was another part about California's role on the global scene. Where were you going with that? And I'll see if I'm competent to address it.
Well, because California seems to is considered, I think it's either the 8th or the 6th largest economy on the planet. It's not doing very well at the moment, but it's still there. So it's, we have this huge import-export ports. We also have, just so much things that are going on. in the state of California. So and it's very much looked on as, especially with Silicon Valley, which has huge tech, IT tech, companies and things like that. So on the global stage, where do you see California playing its role, or and as far as the state government goes, where do you think its involvement should be?
I want to say that my thrust is for California as California, and that's the governor's responsibility to accurately represent the people of California, and that certainly that interfaces with foreign governments. I do understand that, but to rebuild the productivity of California, the industry of California is my thrust.
Right.
I would like to move in the direction of California essentially being sovereign, and what that means then is adequate energy, whatever form that might take, and food supply and water supply. Those are major concerns of mine, and to restore California as a viable, I'll say, self-sufficient, sovereign entity. And then that then relates back to the issue of illegal immigration and minimally trained people coming into the country, state in particular, and the English language being undermined with a number of the languages, especially Spanish. Since I emphasize Spanish, I speak Spanish, so that's extremely important, especially in the southern part of the state. But English is in our state constitution as the language of the state of California. And so that then relates to government documents being printed in other languages. I'm not in favor of using taxpayer dollars to print in Korean, in Tagalog, in Vietnamese, in Spanish, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The people coming here must be assimilated, acculturated, learn English. That's the language of communication. I know that goes a little far from what you are saying. I have no issue about foreign languages being spoken here. The official political language of California and the government emphasis needs to be English in schools and all around. Okay.
Well, here comes another one too. That I want to drip strictly back into California politics itself. California is an extremely litigious state, apparently, and they love to make a lot of laws, and especially ones that seem to be very much in violation of the Constitution itself. How would you, or if you would be so inclined to do so, would you start instead of making new laws and stamping your name on whatever across your desk, how inclined would you be to start repealing a whole bunch of laws?
Well, as you realize, I understand the question. As you realize, the governor doesn't do that. The legislature does that, just so people are clear.
No, I understand that part of it, but I mean, you can exert some kind of a little bit of pressure on them to start. Okay, let's start getting rid of some of this.
I think the huge problem is many of the laws are inconsistent with other laws, and many of them are unnecessary anyway. The liberal legislature passed a law a while back about plastic sacks, etc. Now going into effect in June is the plastic straw law.
Did they pass that, or I thought
that was... Yes, it passed. It goes into effect in June.
Oh my God! These people are insane.
It is I just told you a while back. It's $10,000 of taxpayers' money that goes into this. People are not monitoring their legislators. They think they're special kind of people. Though the people in Sacramento in three-piece suits put their clothes on the same way anybody else does. whether they're working on a farm in the field or in a factory, they put their clothes on the same way. There is nothing sacred about them. And in fact, I get questions now. People have read over my campaign statement and the voter guide, et cetera, and they want clarification, or they want me to deal with some other particular issue. And they ask all kinds of different questions that cannot be covered in a campaign statement. They could be covered if they would attend when I speak publicly at a debate or a panel or something. They could ask the question and get it answered in person. But I respond to all sorts of questions, and sometimes it surfaces, not yet, but it will, about for every new law that's made, that is a new term paper that's written, there needs to be 2 term papers that are obsolete and need to be removed from the books so people can function. Right. And so they know that they can turn left or turn right and not find themselves in violation. But right. Our legislature is not concerned about that. They want to write, as I said, another term paper. I hear it all the time. They're either service-oriented at taxpayer expense, or they are writing another law, a superfluous, unnecessary, removing the rights from the people kind of law. But with respect to returning responsibility to the people, I want to say, and John W. Spring made reference to the homeless. We have a huge homeless problem in California. Part of it relates to a housing issue. Part of it relates to absolute laziness, and part of it relates to mental illness. I'm a research clinical psychologist. I dealt with the mentally ill at the state hospital level, at the county level, and at the private level. With respect to the mentally ill, we must have state hospitals to house them. It's a safe environment that provides their needs. They're not in danger of one another out in public, sleeping under a tree or under a bridge, and they have adequate services that are provided. Now, I speak to the good Republicans, and I make reference to St. Ronnie. St. Ronnie, about 1977, closed the state hospitals in California when he was governor. You see, we as people are a hodgepodge of doing wonderfully good things and not so good things, or making bad decisions. It was a bad decision to close the state hospital. I've tested, evaluated patients in a number of them. I was very much in favor of state hospitals at that time. They were closed. The mentally ill were then literally dumped on the streets and in the counties and in the cities where they are in danger and carry a lot of diseases because they don't take care of themselves, those sorts of things. They need to be in the state hospital. Now, I know that John W. Spring was making reference to how my wife and I have personally dealt with the homeless. I'm going to share that very briefly. But before I get to that, I want to say that the homeless are first the responsibility of the families of origin. They exhaust those resources. I understand that. Churches need to do their part. Rather than building a bigger, better edifice, they need to assume their responsibility, biblically based, to take care of the widows, the orphans, the infirmed. They are responsible, Mary. They are responsible for that, the churches. And also then the next level is the charitable nonprofits. Now I'm saying not the government, but every time the issue comes up, all these people want to say the government. I'm saying no, not the taxpayer. The taxpayer doesn't know how their money is being used. But I did also say we need state hospitals. That, in fact, is a taxpayer responsibility. I understand that, and needs to be.
But first and foremost, the people have to take care of their own first. You can't always look to the government for solutions to the problem, because a lot of times the government is the problem to begin with.
most definitely. Now, John W. Spring knows that since we own a farm, and I had farm workers, and when I downsized the farm, I had two beautiful mobile homes on the farm, 10 by 50. I housed by referral from my wife and I did, from referral by local pastors, couples who were homeless. They lived in these mobile homes. They worked on the farm. They learned saleable skills. We then helped them get a job and sent them on their way at no expense to them. And we had a 75 to 80% success rate on these people who had never been productive members of society. Now, and so that was our commitment to these people. Now, listen to this. Government is the problem. Code enforcement came to the property to look around. I didn't have the sense to have a sign on the property that says only those who are invited are welcome to attend with the proper ordinances listed there. But I didn't know about that at the time. They said these mobile homes are not permitted. And you can use them for storage, you can't use them for residence. And so we liquidated that portion of the farm and no longer accepted referrals from pastors to house, train, and move them out into society. That was code enforcement.
Right.
I have a positive feeling about enforcement.
So more government over regulation.
Precisely.
Right. Okay. Anyway, we're out of time here, so
and we want
I'd like
to thank you.
Our guest, Robert Newman, and we'll see you all next week.